Hey folks, and welcome back to Tweak Week here on Passion for Sound. We're about halfway through now. I've done 3 videos already on different tweaks like the Burson Audio V7 op amps and audiophile power fuse, and then yesterday was the Tellurium Q Black version 2 speaker cables. And now today I'm back with another Tellurium Q cable, and this time, and I know this is going to make some of you angry and I'm sorry about that, this time it's the Tellurium Q Black II power cable. Now I can't show you the whole cable because I've got it plugged in at the other end, so I can test it in just a second. But all you need to know is it's a quite expensive power cable from Tellurium Q. I've previously bought and tested a bunch of different Supra power cables along with some Supra power boards and found they made a noticeable difference in my system. And so I already believe that power cables can be helpful. It doesn't always mean that they're better. I actually found that I preferred certain of the Supra cables in some situations than others. It was actually not always the most expensive one that I liked. Sometimes I liked the one down from that. And so I was just curious to hear what the Tellurium Q Black version 2 cable might bring to the system as opposed to my Supras that I use. And now in terms of pricing, the Tellurium Q cable here, this is the Black version 2, this comes in at about $800 to $850 it seems for, I think it's a 1.5 meter cable. I did find it a little bit difficult, the pricing, to try to get a clear US dollar amount. So depending on where I looked, it was 850 British pounds, 815 euros in some places. So it's going to be around about $800 odd for one of these cables. Not at all cheap. And then if you compare that to something like the Supras that I'm running, which are about half the price, this is going to have to do a really good job to impress me enough to say that I think it's worth it. Because that's a lot of money for a power cable. If you think about spending an extra $400 odd on a component device, that can often net you some nice gains. On the other hand though, whenever it comes to cables, I'm the first one to say, don't go out and spend a fortune on cables unless the rest of your system's in place. And so if you're at the point where you've already got your thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear, your main DAC, streamer, headphone amp, etc., if that's all sorted, that's when maybe going out and spending a decent amount of money on a power cable might make sense. Again, I'm going to leave the question of value, whether you want to spend that money, up to you. What my focus here today is to tell you what I hear. And my specific testing is to use the Tellurium Amp 23R. That's being fed by the Chord M Scaler and the TT2. And then I'm going to be listening with the Focal Utopia headphones, and I'll be comparing the Tellurium Q cable up against the second from the top Supra cable, meaning that it's a copper cable rather than their silver-plated copper cable, and just running the standard Supra power connectors. Whereas when we do go to something like the Tellurium cable, that is running the more expensive, it's actually their own connector, no, made by Furutech. I thought it looked like a Furutech's. So it is using a high-quality connector on this one, up against the more standard connector on the Supra. And so I'm going to give that a test and tell you what I hear as a difference. This is one of those tests that makes no sense to me at all. I've already got good power cables running. They already do a good job, better than stock standard generic power cables, and yet somehow this Tellurium cable is doing an even better job. It annoys me because I don't want to spend any more money, and I'm probably not going to spend any more money to buy a set of these, but it's undeniable that it's a better sound, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating because it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand how the power coming into a device like the Tellurium Amp 23R, coming through a cable that's at the end of all the other cabling in my house, how that short length of cable can make any difference to the sound is beyond me, and yet it absolutely is. That is making a difference. So what it's doing, and this is the bit that annoys me, is it's providing an extra sense of clarity and separation of everything in the mix. I was listening on headphones, but what I can imagine is if this had been a speaker setup that I was listening to, if I'd had the speakers plugged in, it would have made it so much easier for those speakers just to disappear into space. I would have been able to hear the vocalist, which by the way was Robert Cray. I was listening to New Blood by Robert Cray. He would have been standing in the room with me much more than with the already excellent Supra cable. And so, as I said, it's frustrating to me because the power cable shouldn't make that much difference. And yet somehow it is making the sound clearer, more transparent. There's a blacker background, and I don't like that term, but I don't have a better term for it. Each of the individual sounds within the recording just kind of popped out of nowhere, was in its own space, within a soundstage with lots of empty space around all the instruments. And then tonally, everything was just perfect. Nothing changed there. There was no extra emphasis placed anywhere. And again, nor should there be. It's a power cable. But somehow this transparency, this sense of clarity, resolution, imaging, all of it was better. And so, as I said, I can't explain it. I find it frustrating. This is one of those areas of this hobby that I do find annoying because it doesn't make sense to me. And if anybody can explain how or why, from a physics point of view, the power cable can make a difference, I would absolutely love to hear it. I can only assume it's got to do with noise being kept out of the system through shielding and stuff, but I'm really not sure. What I do know for sure is that the Tellurium Q Black version 2 cable is even better than the already expensive Supra cables that I've got here. And in fact, I'm going to pause for a second because I was running, as I said before, the second from the top version of the Supra cables. I'm just going to go back and test quickly running the top of the line Supra cable, which is a silver-plated copper. It's also using the same style of Furutech connectors. Maybe they're slightly different, but it's another Furutech high-quality connector. I'm just going to test that up against the Black II and see if you can get the same performance for less by going down the Supra path. Okay, so good news and bad news here. The good news is the higher spec Supra cable got me a little bit closer to what I was hearing from the Black II. The bad news is it doesn't get there. So the sense of separation of sounds is not as good from the Supra cables as the Black II from the Tellurium Q cables. It's the Tellurium Q, as I said, just produces this sound where there is so much space around each instrument that if you're listening to it on a speaker setup, the speakers are going to be helped to disappear. Obviously, the speaker system has to be good to start with, but the point is it's going to make it easier for that illusion of the speakers disappearing to happen because the image is so precisely focused and there's so much space around each sound. Whereas with the Supra cable, it got very, very close, and for the money you're spending, where you're probably spending about half as much, it's very, very good. But the bad news is it is still, I'm not going to say worth spending more. You still get benefits by spending more on the Black II from Tellurium Q. And so this is one of those again where for me, I don't know that I can personally justify the expense of that cable, particularly because I'd need more than one of them. But if you're someone that's in a situation where you've put all the money you need to into the rest of your system, you've got everything that you want, and you're looking for a really nice way of taking it to that final step, that final level, then the Tellurium Q Black version 2 cable is nothing short of brilliant. I hate to think what the even higher level versions from Tellurium Q might do because this thing's nuts. I'm absolutely shocked at the quality of sound that it brings. I'm shocked that it can make that much of a difference as a power cable because I totally do not understand it. But it is also at the same time undeniable. And this one is undeniable to the point that I do believe you'd pick it blind. Not necessarily blind in the sense that you had one cable plugged in and then someone came and changed it and the next day you walked in and listened to it again. But if you had two identical setups and you could switch between them, I don't think it would even be close. I'm very comfortable with this one that I'm pretty sure you'd pick it even in a blind test. It's surprising, it's clear, it's obvious. And so therefore, I think the Tellurium Q Black version 2 cable is nothing short of fantastic. And so just to reiterate what I said again, because I want to make this really clear, I am not recommending that people go out and spend $800 on a power cable unless the rest of their system is in place. But if you are in a position where you can afford that on power cables and the rest of your system is at a level that warrants it, then I think the Tellurium Q Black version 2 power cable is an easy recommendation. And so as always, I hope you found this video useful and helpful. If you have, please hit the like button and subscribe and ring the notification bell if you haven't already. And don't forget that we've still got 2 more Tweak Week videos coming with the Tellurium Q USB cable, the Black II, and also the RCA cables from the same series. And so for now, I'll leave it to the music. Happy listening, be kind to each other, and hopefully I'll see you for the next 2 Tweak Week videos here on Passion for Sound.